Hi, I'm Gavin Scruggs. To me, the work that the church is doing is so much bigger than the name Journey Towards Racial Justice. Although racial justice is important, I view that what we are doing is so much bigger than that name. As a member of the human race and a person of faith, I believe we recognize that we are all created in God's image. God's image is so broad and honestly can be difficult to comprehend at times. But at the center of that image, I believe, is love. FMUMC is such an amazing congregation, and we've been so grateful to be a part of it for over 10 years. Like many congregations, FMUMC shows its love by being so welcoming and accepting of anyone who walks through its doors. In addition, FMUMC has a special gift for outreach to help others in need. It is important that we recognize where we are on our own individual journey as it relates to recognizing and embracing the differences of who we are as an individual and how that can be different from all the people in the rest of the world. What is the perspective or lens that people who are different than I am see the world? Some of the differences in perspective that we need to recognize are faith, race, ethnicity, culture, nationality, gender, sexual orientation, age, am I an extrovert or an introvert, family of origin, socioeconomic background, physical abilities, education, political perspectives. I believe that our individual view of these items are shaped by many things, including when and where we were born, the environment we were raised, the experiences we have had in life. Each of us have been shaped by the items I mentioned, as well as many more that I did not. We are all on our own journey and in different places as it relates to our views. I hope by sharing mine, it will allow others to reflect on their own experiences and viewpoints and apply it to our Christian responsibility to be the hands and feet of Christ. For me as an individual, I'm so thankful each and every day for when and where I was born, my family of origin that raised me and still an important part of my life, and the experiences I have had as an adult with my own family. Within that, I recognize that my lens is through the middle-aged white male born in the United States and being born into a family of origin that values faith, education, hard work, and acceptance of all people. My exposure to diversity in race and faith started early in my life. For those of you that do not know me, I will turn 50 in January. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and raised in Dallas, with extended family that lived primarily in Texas, Tennessee, and Mississippi. My father, uncle, and aunt grew up in Memphis. My mother grew up in Dallas and had extensive family in Mississippi. My parents went to the University of Mississippi, and my dad was a freshman in the fall of 1962 when James Meredith, the first black man to be admitted to Ole Miss, enrolled. James Meredith lived in my dad's dorm, which was surrounded by the National Guard 24 hours a day. I can't comprehend being a freshman in college and having the National Guard surround my dorm 24 hours a day. Since I was born in 1972 and started kindergarten at schools that were integrated, this was a foreign concept to me. I remember asking my dad at an early age if the students were opposed to James Meredith attending Ole Miss, and he said in general it was not an issue that the students opposed, but rather local and other people within the state that were opposed to Ole Miss being integrated. My uncle, who is younger than my dad, was 20 years old and living in Memphis, Tennessee, in April 1968 when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. At the time, my uncle drove a white Ford Mustang. You may recall in history that coincidentally, this was the type of car that James Earl Ray was driving. My uncle was in Little Rock, Arkansas at the time of the shooting, but it did not take long for the FBI to pull he and his friends over to be thoroughly questioned. This experience was one of the items that inspired him to become an attorney. My mother, who has her master's degree, and was a marriage and family therapist for years, was once introduced by her dad to someone as, quote, the daughter that married the doctor. That shocked me at a young age, but made me realize quickly how gender played a role in our society. We all have personal experiences that were significant to us. A few of mine were, I was fortunate enough to attend a racially diverse school growing up and had the opportunity to play football. As many of you know, playing sports or serving in the military or being part of an organization can allow to create strong and lasting bonds with others. I had a great football coach, and he was determined to break any racial barriers that were on our team because of societal norms or the history of segregation. He created this atmosphere by us having a team meal every Thursday evening and said that he would sit us like a bunch of salt and pepper shakers if we couldn't figure it out ourselves. We attended church together every Friday afternoon before a game. Faith was an important part of that team. We would gather in the locker room and all hold hands to pray and recite the Lord's Prayer before every game. We had to hold hands in the huddle at practice, before every play, and in every play in a game, which was not a common thing for males to do in the 1980s. Our coach succeeded in breaking down those barriers, and 30 plus years later, our teammates still have a strong bond, and we get very excited when we have the opportunity to see one another. When I was 25 in 1997, Meredith, one of my teammates, and his girlfriend were driving from Alabama back home to Dallas from a wedding. In Jackson, Mississippi, there was an accident on the interstate, and it was shut down. I was given instructions from a police officer of what to do. A little later, a different police officer came up and gave me new instructions, and I followed his instructions as he requested. But soon after, the first police officer sped after me down the interstate to catch up with me, furious. He pulled me over, handcuffed me, put me in a squad car for not following his orders. He didn't arrest me. He didn't read me my rights. He just drove off, leaving Meredith and my friends in the car. Needless to say, Meredith and my friends were in shock, and my friend jumped in the driver's seat and followed the police officer and I. After a period of time of this officer yelling at me while he was driving, he pulled over into a wooded area in the median of the interstate, took my handcuffs off, dropped me off, and just left me. Not only was I overwhelmed with emotion and fear, I thought to myself, what this would have been like if this would have happened to one of my black teammates or my fraternity brother who's gay. How much worse it could have been off for them. I was then exposed to the system in which we live. Once we got home to Dallas, I shared with my parents what had occurred. My father was furious at what happened, as any father would be. His close friend's brother was a district attorney in Mississippi, and within a few days, I received a call from an investigator about the incident, and then a call directly from that district attorney with an apology and letting me know that the issue had been resolved with that officer. I was so appreciative of what my father had done to bring this issue to light, but once again, I thought to myself, if this would have happened to one of my black teammates or to my gay fraternity brother, would the outcomes have been the same? More recently, one of Meredith's seminary colleagues, who was black, went into a restaurant, walked past two white couples at a table. One of them said, "Aren't you in the wrong place?" When Meredith told me this story, my jaw hit the floor. I thought, this is 2021. How can these things still be occurring? That is part of what has led me to this opportunity to serve. All organizations, businesses, cultures, and countries have systems. No system is perfect, but it's our job as Christians to be the hands and feet of Christ and recognize that within each of those systems, oppression can occur, either intentionally or unintentionally, and we must work to change it. The collection of these events, many more like them that I don't have time to explain here on the camera, but happy to share with you in person, and my awareness that systems are not perfect influenced me to share my story and to see if I can help the greater church down the path of journey towards justice. To end on a hopeful note, I'm a big U2 fan because not only do I think their music is great, but so much of their music is inspired and speaks about their faith. A song they did over 30 years ago was with the late B.B. King called "When Love Comes to Town." One of my favorite lines is B.B. King singing, "I have seen love conquer the great divide." To me, that is a reminder of when I have doubts about difficult societal situations that love can conquer all. Amen.